Well, the scene is somebody is basically having their chest cavity hacked away at with a piece of wood until it's completely gone. But I had to write it just a few sentences at a time in little shifts, because trying to like visualize that and sit there in that frame of mind, it was so difficult and so draining that it took me a week to do this paragraph, and then I'd get sick like editing it, and I'd have to set it aside. But in the end, it was the paragraph that I needed to tell the story that I thought I needed to tell.
Christopher and I started working together about 6 months ago, and within, I'd say probably with the past year to 2 years, there's been sort of a shift in his work, using photos as more of a delivery system for ideas instead of the photo becoming the idea.
I used to be really proud of photography as a system where, you're taking, you're stealing. There's sort of this inherently naughty quality that you're looking around the world for stuff that you want to take and have, and that photo gives you this way of doing it. And then sort of after about 10 years of straight photo, I just realized that some of the thoughts that I was trying to convey just couldn't be conveyed. The meaning that I saw when I looked at them, I wasn't able to get across without manipulating them in some way or doing something to sort of, add this additional layer. It's like schizoanalysis.
How much does LA influence your work? Not a good question?
Totally not a good question.
Oh, come on!
That's like a dog of a question.
Okay, let me start again. Circus gallery in kind of a funny location in LA.
I'm kind of glad to be in a gallery that's really not sort of in the thick of like...
It's a wild town.
I think that I try to deal with things that sort of embellish the psychology of the characters in the writing, but I'm not really speaking for them. I think that the book that I did on Finding Faye Dunaway, where the main character was obsessional, and I wrote this sort of lengthy psychological exploration, and I did it twice, once in the first person, once in the third person, to really get at who the character was, why they thought the way they thought, what they were getting at from the different experiments that I was doing. People weren't sure if it was me or if I was developing a character. So like when I cut Faye into my arm, it wasn't about my obsession, but sort of, like they tell actors to commit to the moment. I think that artists and writers, when they're really good, that they do that, and whatever sort of thing they're trying to pull off, they have to act like there's nothing in the world that matters more than that. And so they do it and they run with it. They were printed really low resolution, half-tones, so that they resembled something that was like cheaply printed in maybe a foreign country. So it's like kind of, on my vacation I stalked Faye Dunaway. No, I sent her a letter, and I actually sent her photographs, like samples of my work that she could have and keep and hang if she wanted them. I sent her a camera a disposable camera. Come on, girl. And I asked her to photograph her Oscar for me.
Was this sent as an artist or as a stalker?
As an artist. The thing that I really didn't want with that piece was for somebody to come in and take this narrative that I've been so careful to construct and say, this piece looks the best, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to either take the whole narrative, the good, the bad, and the ugly, or you can't have any of it.
The first work I knew of Christopher's, which I think was sort of a hit at a young age, was the landscape photos where he went to a park in San Francisco and took pictures of men cruising through a hole in his pocket.
The experience of making them, it's one of those things that felt incredibly dangerous at first. I had a little hole in my pocket. I'd aligned the lens of an automatic snapshot camera. It was just a 35mm auto advance, plastic lens, real quiet motor, something I got on Market Street in San Francisco for like $30. Bought a thrift store golf jacket, cut a little hole, frayed the edges so it looked natural, made sure the hole aligned to the lens. And so then I'd kind of fumble in my pocket while I was taking these pictures. But the fumbling, you know, the jacket kind of hung down, so I was kind of fumbling around here. So it looked, I think that I just looked like I was, you know, a part of the environment.
And this was 97, right?
96.
96. So it was before the digital everything, before cameras on cell phones, before cameras on keychains.
Yeah. I used to say I was like a little kid playing James Bond, and I don't think anybody ever like really suspected or would have thought like, oh, maybe there's a camera in his pocket and he's photographing us through that tiny little frayed hole. Well, they were first shown on campus. I think I was a sophomore when I made those. I think that the initial reaction from my peers was like, oh God, not that. And they basically gave me a show in the gallery in the photo lab because it was early in the term. The show date happened to coincide with a visit from Sally Mann, who stopped her lecture and asked to meet me. And sort of after that, you know, people that used to be very open in their disdain for me wanted to become friends. And
once Sally Mann deems you cool, other people think you're cool?
Well, you know, how often do you see it in academia that somebody stops their lecture, stops talking about themselves to ask about student work they saw in the gallery? And so then I became cool beyond cool. I pretty much always worked and made my art. So, you know, even though I've had a lot of breaks lately, you know, the monetary rewards aren't maybe what they might have been 5 years ago. The work from the Hammer show that sold, I mean, pretty much all of that went back into art making. I bought enough supplies to stock up to make sure that, you know, I have ink for my printer and paper, mounting board, all of the necessities for the studio, and tried to make sure that all of that was covered for about a year. You know, and I splurged on some stuff. I got a perfect binder so that I can make my own like perfect bound books, so I can have stuff coming out of my studio in fairly rapid fashion that, I mean, at least some aspect of it competes with something commercially produced. That's kind of my relationship with money. I'm sort of accustomed to living on what I make from working, and so when I get sort of a bonanza from selling artwork, it all goes into the artwork and lets me do something that I think is kind of special and extraordinary that I couldn't have done, you know, the month before.
Oh, what are you working on now? What's coming up next?
I'm in a group show at the Armory Center in Pasadena. Basically, I'm taking the same image. I can even show you. I'm working with this image. 28 different ones. I started with these frames that I got at this weird little antique store out in Monrovia. I'm building each image to go with a specific frame. It'll be in the ammunitions room, which has this old metal door, and the walls, they have that sort of odd look of the poured concrete that kind of seeps out at the bottom, and there's pits in it.